Hello, Dweezil. Welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I want to go over some couple questions I've had for you. There's a lot of you on the internet. A lot of you've answered a lot of the same questions. So I hope I don't retread anything too much. But I want to end towards the end. Your the rewards program. I've talked about to other artists. I probably annihilated it a million times, and now I'm like, just go look at the website. So maybe because like everybody, it's like the best thing. So maybe you could kind of clarify and do a much better version so I could at least refer to this.
I'll
And
do
then,
what I can. I'll do
then
what
we'll
I
end
can.
up, then we'll kind of go back to the new Running with the Dweezil podcast, and
Sure.
which is pretty awesome, and maybe some little memories you may have. But initially, I want to jump in. I usually like do like a history of stuff of bands, but there's so much of you out there. So what I thought was I would well, let me start. So initially, this show is about anyone who's been watching it, artists and how the real life and finances are, and just being an artist nowadays, it's not all about being rock stars. And what happened was a couple of years ago, going to many of your shows, I was in line, and guys in front of me were drinking whatever, and they start complaining about the t-shirt prices, which is at every concert you hear.
Right.
Which I think because people have a misnomer about what goes on really, the prices and the cost. And they go and they leave, and I'm like idiots, so I go buy two things because of that. You got to bring out that the sweatshirt you had, a thin Mothers of Other Intention sweatshirt.
Oh, yeah.
That is the perfect thickness. I wear that like all the time. I'm probably gonna need a new one, so make sure you get that back out there.
I like that one too. That was a good one. But I know what you're talking about. So when you're at a concert, a lot of times, if you're a fan, you look at what people have for sale, and everybody's thinking about, okay, well, what makes sense? What can I afford? Does this feel like this is the right quality for what's being charged? And what people don't really know is that if something, let's say there's a t-shirt that's $50 and somebody says, oh, that's so overpriced. So the reason something gets priced so highly for the most part is it depends on if you have a shirt, let's say you have a 5-color shirt. It's got a lot of art with different colors. Those are expensive to manufacture. So you're going to be looking at just the base price of doing a shirt with an expensive art thing is going to be anywhere from, let's say, $9 to $15 per shirt, depending on what you're doing. So that's your cost for making the shirt. But then when you go to the venue is going to take either 20 or 30% of your sale. You also have to pay the person who's selling the merch.
Right.
You have to pay for stuff to be shipped out when you run out of things. So there's all these costs involved. And so a $50 shirt most likely will, a band at the end of the day will make between $8 and $12 on a $50 shirt. So the price that an audience or a fan might be thinking that the artist is getting from that is not what they're getting. It's priced because it's so expensive to do a high quality thing. And then somebody's reaching into the artist's pocket because venues take a cut and all these other expenses that go with it. So it's not well known for the public to understand how that kind of stuff works and the expenses that are involved. And artists like me, I hate having to do something that I feel like would overcharge somebody. And so I will have to try to make stuff that is as affordable as I can make it. But then I will have to also make the designs maybe less interesting because they cost too much, So it really just depends on what you can do and the kind of volume that you expect to sell. Because at the other end of it, if you're going to be printing these things and you spend all this money to buy them in advance and then you don't sell them, now you're sitting on a whole bunch of stuff that you can't sell because it's not current and it might have old dates on it or something like that. So it's a really precarious place for bands to be in when it comes to selling merch on tour, because it's tough to know what might sell and how much to order. And that's the other thing. People complain, oh, you never have my size. It's like, well, we don't know who's going to be at the show and who's going to, it's really hard.
I imagine that, and I didn't even realize that deep. I just know, I know you have to make the shirts, and even if you get a bigger profit of that, and then I know, they're always taking a profit out of it wherever you're at. They cut into that and they're selling it. But I know a lot of the profit has to go towards like touring, like to have a bus, to
Right.
have fuel and insurance. And then of course, I know you actually said this, what's going to be after touring with COVID? Is it going to be COVID cleaning? There's like so many ridiculous costs that merchandise has actually helped support a band to go because you're not making money off of albums. The profit margin is so crazy now.
Yeah.
And you tour with a full band. I mean, you have artists that can play 2 or 3 instruments, sing in different voices. I mean,
Right.
that's not a little venue thing with like 3 guys that are from high school. It's an event. You need to sleep. You need to be comfortable. You can't be in the back of a Winnebago. You know what I mean? You need to have regular meals and to perform.
It's tough. People don't realize the struggles that you have just to do the core foundation of a tour to make it financially stable. On average, a tour bus will cost $1,000 a day. That's not even for a great bus, you know? And
That's insane.
so if you're out on the road for 2 months, right there, just the cost of the bus alone, so if you're not able to make enough money at the shows,
Mhm.
you might as well just stay home. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You can't, like, why would you spend all this money to pay for a bus? You got to pay for the band, you got to pay for your crew, you got to pay for the merch to be made, and you have to sell enough tickets and do enough stuff that draws enough people to make it worth it to be away from home for months at a time and do all that stuff. So when people think that you're making, money hand over fist, maybe some artists who have a huge following are making a really good living doing it, but a lot of people are in a real working class situation trying to make this work. And now that the actual touring has been taken away from artists,
Yeah.
it's really tough. And I feel for everybody involved, because especially the crew people, that they love music, they want to be around music. They don't
Mhm.
make music, but they help people make music because they
Right.
set up the equipment, or they do the recording, or they do all these things. Those people, they don't have anything that they can do. They're not trained to do
Yeah.
other stuff, and they don't want to have to be doing other stuff. They want to do the job that they like doing. So
Even
it's
during
really
better
tough.
times,
Yeah,
it's
it's
like that.
tough.
Like even I went to college for production. Even during better times, just to get into this stuff is a tooth and nail situation. To do that to begin with,
Right.
so I think it's crazy. And like I see like some of the guitarists in some bands are like doing guitar lessons on Skype, and they're finding like new ways of supplementing until we get through it. But tell people buy the merch, support the bands. They come back out. Everybody's back out there. It's important. I mean, no one's not living like Led Zeppelin right now. It's everyone's working class and they got kids and mortgages and none of the bands are complaining. I want to say that right now. They're just, it is what it is, and I just see it as a fan and a lover of music, being like, well, I think everybody should kind of see this a little more and be aware of it. So it's not a personal day. They're not buying caviar. They're paying bills and bringing the show to you. It's
I mean, a lot of people are that's their way to keep the lights on, and it's their job. You
yeah,
know, they get to enjoy doing their job by presenting music and playing music for people, but it may not be the kind of lucrative thing that people imagine that all artists have, because
right.
people are duped into thinking that when you see something like
Cribs.
MTV Cribs,
That's exactly it.
you
That ruined
know,
it for everybody.
yeah, people rent their houses for that and all these things, to present something that's not real. So uh, at the end of the day, when you're a fan of music and you really like something,
Right.
if you are able to support the artist directly, it's going to go so much. It's the best way to help that artist then continue to make the music, do their best work, and then do something that's special for the fans. And what
Right.
what artists need to recognize is that in the world of social media, you're under the impression that if you have all these followers, let's say you have 1 million followers, out of those 1 million followers, how many are real? How many of them actually buy tickets? How many of them actually will show up and support you directly? And so the percentage of that is going to be much, much lower. But the thing that somebody really needs to focus on, if you're an independent artist in particular, is instead of trying to think of how am I going to maybe get 1 million people to spend $1 on a song,
Mhm.
maybe you could get 10,000 people to spend $100 across all the things that you do, all your content. And monetarily, it may end up being the same number, but it's exponentially a better experience for the fans when you have this ability to curate something, be in touch with them, have this interconnected reciprocal relationship, which is what you can have when you have a direct relationship with people that are on your email list and you can reach them directly. So, you know, if you look at it like a company like Apple or even Amazon, let's say, when you go to those sites, you're not expected to leave those sites. You're expected to find exactly what you want right there, do all your shopping. You don't go down a rabbit hole somewhere else.
Yeah.
You get the things that you want. And then if they want you to come back, guess what? They don't use social media. They have your email. They contact you directly. So Apple's never going to use Twitter to say, hey, come over and check out our stuff. You know, they have all their customers that go to them directly. And artists need to recognize that that's the way that you have a sustainable fan base and income is if you have a permission base of people that will come to you directly. And it's not always about like trying, yes, you can spread the word on social media and say, hey, I'm doing all these things, but come support me in one location at my website. And that's the thing right now that really is, you're seeing it happen a bit more than ever, because especially with like what you were saying, where people are using their skills to teach music and do other stuff to supplement their income when they can't be touring. And but what they'll do is they'll promote it and they'll say, hey, I'm going to be doing these lessons, or I can do, you know, this special event, but they'll tell you to go to one place. They'll promote it in a lot of places, but they'll tell you to go to one place. And if the internet was created today, that's what you would want. You would want an artist to be able to say, hey, I've got all my stuff in one place, come check it out here. And, you know, you have that direct relationship with them. It makes perfect sense. And that's why we did reward music, because it integrates everything. It gives the artist the chance to present anything that they want content-wise, all in one place, but it also connects the artist and the fan directly in a reciprocal relationship where the more they do to support that artist, they get reward points. And so if something was going to be $25, if they spent, you know, a week on the website hanging out with their friends, bringing people to the site, buying stuff, commenting, now suddenly the price starts going down. So what you do naturally as a fan, anybody who likes something, the first thing they do is tell somebody. They just say, hey, this is so great. I had the best food at this restaurant, or this song is so cool. Have you heard it? Check it out. So just by doing that naturally, if you do it in one place in that artist community, it benefits you, it benefits the artist. And that's the goal, is just to, you know, wake people up enough to say, artists should have a direct relationship with their fans. They shouldn't have to buy their fans back or do stuff like, you know, on Facebook, if you do an ad and they say, oh, well, you could reach more people if you boost the ad. It's like, okay, well, if I already had 100,000 people that I was reaching, you mean to tell me I wasn't reaching them? I was only reaching like 3,000 out of 100,000, and I got to keep buying my way up to the 100,000 that I brought there to begin with. And that's what's happening, is that people are, they're spending money on something and getting nothing in return. They don't get the emails. They don't have that direct access, yet they're giving away their content for free everywhere. They're giving it away on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, but they don't have to. They're just trained to do that.
And I think that's a good point, but you've also led by example. Now, you disclaimer, I actually belong to your site, and the only album I've actually put any money to was your last album, Visa the fundraiser. That was the first time I ever did that. And then I joined your page, and then over the years you've you know, focused it into the rewards program. I think it is with your friend, you kind of did it. So I've experienced the points, and I hate going all over the website looking for stuff. Yeah. So I love the fact, go on your page, you know, once or twice, I have it up there on my link, so I'll check it out. Because, for example, so anybody who hasn't been on the page, Dweezil has like new music on there, all of his albums you can stream, different things. Besides interactive videos, there's like a ton of things for such a small price. You get everything on there. Plus, there are fans that you can contact, and you post pictures, and it's where it's all there. It's more than you'd even think getting it like on YouTube, where you get like some bootleg thing, except for that eruption thing you did back in 2012
Yeah.
with David Lee Sloth. Who
No.
was that guy?
He's actually on our crew. He does the monitor mixes for us. He's a good singer.
Well,
And
that's what I'm saying. His voice was really good.
yeah. The thing is, you know, we're huge fans of Van Halen and everything. But
That's so funny.
we, you know, we wanted to play the songs well, but then there was a bit of a sense of humor to his presentation because he wore this outfit that somebody had given to him on the road, some like unitard thing. So,
but the Zappa name is across the board. I mean, your father branded it, but you know, you guys, it's a sense of humor. You can't like, you know, take the piss out of something if you can't like Zappa, and if you're not going to know, it's going to make you smile at some point in the song.
but we still take the music seriously. So it
oh no,
wasn't
yeah,
like
yeah,
we
of course, of
taken it-
course.
Yeah.
No, no. The singer, I mean, you know, the music and at the shows, you guys are flawless. Everything you do is just, I mean, clearly it's a rehearsal. It's like ridiculously long, but yeah, on your site, it's incredible. I can't believe the amount of music that's on that you download, and it's and for a fan, I can't see why they wouldn't want to do it. You know, it's
Well,
fantastic. I didn't expect that much from it, to be honest with you.
Well, that's been the goal here, is to say, I want to be able to have a space that I can put new things on as soon as they're ready, and find things that I never had a chance to put out because I didn't have a way to put them out. And so there's a lot of new content that gets to be put up frequently.
Oh yeah,
And then the next level of stuff that I'm going to be able to start doing is live broadcasts and things that will be really interactive. Like we could be doing the kind of thing that we're doing right now and have a listening party and listen to a piece of music or listen to a podcast, and we can have other people in it, and we can have a chat, and we can be doing all this stuff, and we can be talking about all the things that are fun and exciting, and it can be totally an interactive thing. And that has never really been possible for an artist before, especially to have it integrated in one place where people only have to come to one thing. You don't have to promote it as, oh, I'm doing this on Twitch, or I'm doing this over here, I'm doing that, and trying to get all these people to find it. You know, you find the people that want to come to the place frequently, and then hopefully they tell their friends, and it builds organically in that same way that we were just talking about, where like, you know, if you've been to a restaurant and you had the best, you know, dinner you've ever had, you want to go back to that. And this is the kind of thing where, you know, you want to create that experience so that you have a community of people that are sharing in this thing. And, you know, that's really important, especially now, because if you're a musician and you want to be able to reach people and you want to do the thing that you do, you have to have a way to at least have a certain core amount of people that will come back and be that impetus to be able to just make it work, you know, because it really is hard. This is not something that anybody can you know, expect to do and have it be like an overnight sensation. I mean, maybe if you're like a Korean boy band, maybe you could do it, you know, but I don't know. It's very challenging because at the end of the day, I care about music. I care about the people that support the stuff that I do. And I want to be able to make a good experience, a curated experience, something that is a reason for them to want to come there, not just because, hey, buy stuff, you know. It's like
it's incredible. I mean, clearly, I can't imagine how much practicing you have to do to get up to the speed of some of the shows you put on. On top of that, you're on your site all the time. You answer your emails personally. Not only does that, even from the beginning, if I had a question about when I was getting your CD at the beginning, at any point, your wife's involved, super sweet, right? Responding back. It's like so it's like a family effort, which is totally the best anyhow.
Yeah.
It is organic is the best thing. So it's a personal thing. You really feel like you're connected, and you know it's true. It's really the best thing.
That's all we can do, you know, because we don't have a huge organization of people. It's just me and my wife that work on this stuff. We have some other people that help us with certain things, but we are so hands-on with it all because it matters to us. And
I don't belong to any other site though. I wouldn't pay for anything else because I don't need a headless corporation. I can find stuff, whatever. You know what I mean? It's because of what
Yeah.
you do. It's that this is the model that I think more people want. I think it's going to be
Well,
exposed to it.
well, I feel like when people start to discover uh, what is possible with the integrated tools for reward music, they'll start to see the things that we're talking about, the sense of community, the ability to be able to broadcast something anytime that you want, but you have the ability to turn it into something that is, if you make it exclusive and you're making it available in one place, it gives it enough value that you can actually make it a destination. You can make it a subscribable piece of content or a pay-per-view piece of content. And when you have artists that are really good at storytelling and making music and making things that are interesting and creative, and you want to learn about the process, you have this ability to, as an artist, do all of those things, but then you also have the ability to link it, to make it something for people to purchase, and it's a direct transaction. So reward music doesn't take anything from any artist. It's 100% of the sale goes to the artist. So if you're an artist that starts on reward music, anything you sell, you get 100% of it. Now, of course, if you have relationships or a business relationship, partnership, or whatever,
right?
that's something that you take care of on your own side. But the goal was to make something that can work for somebody that's starting their band in their mom's basement, all the way through to a label artist, having that direct connection with the fans, and not having all the middlemen taking something out of it. It's the closest thing to, if you saw somebody playing music on a street corner and you said, hey, that person's amazing, I can't believe how good they are, and they've got their hat there or their guitar case open, and you give them $1 or you give them whatever you give them. This is the closest thing to that.
Busking. The internet busk. The internet buskers.
That's what happens, is like you as an artist say, here's what I do. I'm going to do the best I can. And you hope that people will see something in it. And if they feel moved by it, they're going to go ahead and make a contribution, and they're going to stick around and see how it develops.
You broke down too. You had a good example. I don't know the numbers, for maybe you can share it. Like the profit margin, like compared to like a Spotify, I think you owe money to Spotify if you're an artist. Compared like how many plays to like how much, because you did a good breakdown. I forgot what the number was. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, so what people don't recognize about Spotify, I'll give you that number in a second. But so here's something that maybe people aren't aware of. If you're somebody that's a music lover, you look at Spotify and you think, oh, that's great. I could have access to all these songs. I could have millions of songs. And I just pay for this membership for this music. I don't even have to have it live on my computer. I just rent it. I listen to it when I want. Sounds great. But the artist actually doesn't get anything from it. And I mean, they get very little from it is the reality. So when you look at how that business model works, Spotify doesn't pay for the music that they are giving you in your membership. So let's look at it in terms of something like a car rental company. If you're a car rental company, you can buy a car and then you can rent that car, but you still have to buy the car before you rent it.
Okay, yeah.
Spotify doesn't buy the music before they rent it. So they get this huge profit on this stuff. And the people that made the music are not getting anything from it. They're getting nano pennies on the dollar. So now we all know that it's not possible to live on federal minimum wage, which is $15,080 a year, right? To make $15,000 on Spotify, you need 3.8 million streams. Now,
is that like Mariah Carey's Christmas song? I mean, that's crazy.
Well, in 10 years, I could not get 3.8 million streams.
Really?
Maybe not even 20 years.
Wow.
So I would, anything I get from Spotify is it's not even in dollars, it's in pennies.
Insane.
So,
that is insane.
So it really is crazy. Like, so we know you can't live on minimum wage, but that's the majority of artists that are dealing with Spotify are not even getting minimum wage. But yet the consumer thinks, oh, this is so great, I love this. But you realize if you're a music fan,
Mhm.
and let's say you only like 10 bands, which is pretty much the average for most people, that they want to be like involved in things that they want to be updated on. It may be maybe even less than 10 artists, but let's say you have 5 or 10 artists,
Mhm.
and if they had their own place like a reward music site, and you were just going to spend $2.50 a month for whatever their subscription plan
Right.
is, it's pennies on the dollar. I mean, you could be spending $30 to $60 a year to support your favorite bands, right? Multiple bands, which is around the same kind of money that you're going to spend on Spotify. Yet this would support them directly in a much better way.
The
So
content's way better too.
yeah, so that's the goal here with Reward Music is to give artists an opportunity to have a place to draw people that's easy for them to find, easy for them to get involved with,
Mhm.
but that they can have a reciprocal relationship with the fans, and they get reward points and benefits for participating, and just build it gradually, and organically from there. And there's never been a way to do it where all these things are integrated in one place, because we've put so many tools into one thing, and that's what makes it very difficult to explain, because the music industry is a multi-layered thing of how it all works, and my experience and the experience of others who helped build this thing are all put into this to make sure that we're helping on every level. For example, if you buy a t-shirt, if an artist sold t-shirts in all 50 states, the taxes are different in all 50
Oh yeah.
states. So the reward music program can do all the taxes for you and export it to QuickBooks. It's all
Really?
automatic. So we have things, we have all these layers of things that are built into this stuff that are so integrated that help artists continually take out that middleman. Like now you don't have to pay an accountant to do that part. It's all of these things that help on so many levels. But
Pricing.
it's complicated, but it's a very powerful tool.
I mean, so like for the artists to come in though, it feels like there'd be a lot to get. Well, is that you or me?
I don't know.
Is
I'm
that
still
coming
here.
in? Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. So for an artist to come in, it seems like there's a lot to do. It's like, it feels unbelievable. You're an artist coming with all those offers, right? What is an artist paying? Like, is it staggered? Like how much services they use, the bandwidth?
Yeah.
Like, there's
So it's
always feels
all
like there's a
about,
catch in life.
yeah. Well, this is the thing. There is no catch here. The reward music doesn't take anything from any sale from the
Mhm.
artist, but an artist who is going to set up their own website on reward music, they're going to pay starting off $20 a month. And that $20 a month is going to be for the bandwidth that's used to put up your music
Mhm.
and your videos, and then whatever your audience starts to interact with. Now, that's assuming you're starting with a smaller number of people. So when you come in, if you've never done anything like this, you're going to have 200 to 500 to 1,000 people. And as you get more people that are using the bandwidth and watching and interacting, your bill is going to change, but it's all going to change based on the amount of people in your community and the stuff that's happening. And you'll never be in a situation where you're paying more than what you could be earning from the people that are participating in your community. And but you have all of these integrated things that start at just $20. Now, if you were going to try to build something out of all these different modules to try to interface them and make this all work, you would be spending a minimum of $20 for just one part of a service, like an email portion. So when you started to put all these modules together, you'd be in the hundreds of dollars a month just to put it together, to have your website, to have your broadcasting abilities, and because we do merch fulfillment, like we can print and manufacture and fulfill merch and all of these things, all of this stuff, it's all for $20 a month starting off. So
That's insane to have the bandwidth. Just have it all organized for $20 starting off. I mean, I used to work in cable, and just the insanity of this prices you would be paying elsewhere just to have somebody touch that is, you couldn't do that for 20.
no, And I mean, it's an insane deal for what it is. And the goal is, like we said, to make it for somebody. If you just started your band yesterday and you're rehearsing in your mom's basement, you could start on Reward Music and start to have build your fan base and get the emails and have that from day one. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful thing in the world right now, the biggest commodity, is information, data, emails, direct connection to people. So why would you just be giving that away to Facebook and Instagram and all of that stuff? You need to have, as an artist, you need to have that direct connection with your fans and know who they are and reach them directly and have that permission base. This is about making humane technology that works so that people connect. And it's, like I said, it's permission based. So when you're the artist and you have your Reward Music page, you are not having your data taken and used against you. You know, Facebook and Instagram, they can take all of your fans and sell them to somebody else. You know, and they do it all day long. You know,
I love the idea. I don't even go value really anything else. I just go right to your website now. I would do that with any artist. I really hate using social media to a certain point. I only use it because you know, which one is the less evil of all? You know, you go from Facebook to Instagram is least evil for now, but they keep changing. I love the fact it's going to a website. I'd go for more. I mean, as on there, I think you have a cousin on there now.
I do, yeah. Jason Stanley. He I don't know which one he actually prefers. I think he's preferring Stanley right now, but he's.
That's what I said. Yeah.
He's my dad's brother's son, and he's making some avant-garde music, and he's started his own page on Reward. We're starting to get a lot more people signing up now, and you'll start seeing some interesting people on there. My friend Shane Terrio, he's a great guitarist, and he plays with Hall and Oates, and he's on the show live from Daryl's place. I don't know if you've seen that show, but it's a good show.
Yeah, I've seen it a bunch of times.
Yeah, Love it's a really good show. So he's on there as the musical director. But his site is going to be live soon on Reward, and he's got a lot of great guitar classes and music and all these things that he's doing.
Affordable. Yeah, I'm going to do that.
And then there's a really great female artist that she was on American Idol, and she was also on this other show that was 90 Day Fiance. But she's the kind of artist that could sit with an acoustic guitar and just sing a song. She could be filmed on an iPhone, and she has a way to like just get in the zone, and she can make a song work, just her and an acoustic guitar. Her name's Evelyn Cormier. She's really good. She's got her site. I think it's up and running now. But the thing is, she's the kind of artist that's exactly like what we're talking about, where she's in her early 20s. She can sit with an acoustic guitar, doesn't have to have a band, and she can sing you her songs that she's written or covers. And these are songs that when you hear them, you feel like you've heard them before, because they're well crafted and they just take you on a journey. And she's the kind of person that can make daily content or have live concerts and stuff like that. This kind of tool can help her from the ground up like nothing else, you know, and she can get those fans that will come in, you know, and have that direct thing. So we built this to try to help people, and that's the goal, is to, part of it is you want to be able to educate the audience enough to understand that not every artist, you might think they're all super successful, but many of them aren't what you think. And even the ones that are super successful are still getting ripped off, most likely. You've heard about these stories forever.
Every episode we talk about the record label, the this, the that.
Yeah.
It's just heart-wrenching.
One of the most egregious ones is the Creedence Clearwater Revival. Do you know that whole story?
No, I don't know that one, no.
So like John Fogerty, the main songwriter in that, right? So when they were first starting, they signed a bad deal and they gave away their publishing to the manager. And so the manager was collecting on everything that they did.
Right.
And at a certain point, when they were trying to rectify this bad deal, John Fogerty got sued by the manager who owned his music, the music that he wrote, sued him for sounding too much like himself. So he was saying, listen, I own all these songs, and the new songs you're writing sound too much like the Creedence songs. So, I'm going to have to do a cease and desist. I
Oh,
mean, imagine how preposterous and how revolting that would be as an artist to be ripped off in that way and then be persecuted in that way. And that's the kind of stuff that happens in this business.
it does.
So, that's why you need to be able to have this direct relationship, because so many people come in and snake these situations and do stuff that is so reprehensible, but yet if it's got a legal contract, it's a way to just really mess with people.
It's hard. I mean, I think every artist has gone through it. And I know you even gone through your own little,
Yeah.
your thing, whatever it is. But I mean, the point is, every artist has had to gone through. You just can't even just create. You have to be a business person. You got to manipulate this. Like I couldn't even any of the things. Who needs that? It's hard enough to just write a good song and
Yeah,
rehearse.
I mean, that's the real struggle, is that people expect that you're supposed to make all this great music, yet you're saddled with all these other tasks of being in charge of, doing all your, videos and social media and all that stuff. It's better that the artist is involved and do it, but still, that stuff takes time and effort, and you're not left with the energy to make music. I mean, it's
Yeah.
difficult.
And that's
So
all you hear about now. Artists is being sued. It's supposed to do that. You get an article in Rolling Stone where you're like, I don't care. I want to hear the new album. I want to hear Dweezil's album. I don't want to hear what stupid stuff that's bothering them. Let them focus. They got work to do.
but that's one of the goals of reward music, is to make stuff so integrated that it ends up being able to operate on its own without a huge bunch of people, and that you have a way to start scheduling your content that you can present to people and make it something that people want to tune in for. And that's the real goal, is just to get back to being creative, finding a way for it to reach people. And then when it does reach them, you have that interconnection, you have that ability to if somebody writes to you and says, hey, I really love this song, and they just bought that song, you'll know, because you'll get an email that said this song was just purchased, and you could write to that person right away and say, thank you so much for your support. And you have this ability to make it on such a personal level that it changes the game. And it makes a difference, because I feel like if I had this experience as a fan, being such a fan of music as I was growing up, if I got a personalized response from somebody just because I, purchased something that I wanted to do because I loved it, and then you get a personal response, and it's this kind
The
of,
best.
it makes it so much a better connection that makes you want to keep doing things, and that's, I mean, I just feel it from my own personal experience
You
of
do it a
that.
lot. I mean, and I think you do so much. I don't know how you find time or sleep at this point. I mean,
It's tough,
with
but
with COVID right now, I think I would have gotten this stuff done. I know now you're doing the podcast. Before we wrap up on the podcast, I do want to ask you a couple music questions though
sure.
that I don't think I've heard before. So, production over the years, you've gotten more and more into production,
Yeah.
like recording stuff. So when you first start out, I think you have you obviously Eddie Van Halen. You can touch on that after. Did you produce your first little mini little song?
Yeah.
But then you'd having a bad day, and
Uh-huh.
then Guitar Was Your Mama. At that point, and then Confessions, was a production. Who was producing you to the point like were you kind of going in? They were producing it, kind of telling you what to do. Each album, were you kind of getting more and more involved? Because I know you grew up in a house with the dad that produced everything.
Yeah. So what happened was, the very first thing I did was My Mother's a Space Cadet, and the flip side of that was Crunchy Water. And I was 12 years old, and I'd only been playing guitar for 9 months, or maybe even less than 9 months.
That's ridiculous.
And it was Edward Van Halen came in and produced that group of songs, and it was just me and my 12-year-old friends. Right. So we had it wasn't like we could call up Edward Van Halen and say, hey, would you produce us? Somehow or another, he called our house And then my dad and him got to talking, and they became friendly. And over a few weeks of them having conversations, somehow or another, my dad ended up making an arrangement with Edward to produce this song that I had made. You know, that I had 2 songs written.
Mhm.
So he came in and he did those, and he didn't get credited for the production because Warner Brothers wouldn't allow his name to be on it.
Like
And
everything
this is
else.
funny. I just found out um, just a couple days ago what the name. So on the record, it was credited as Davard's being the producer, and so I thought, well, maybe that's like something that's Dutch or a Dutch
Right.
reference. But I just found out from somebody who knows Don Landy, and Don Landy was the engineer who did all the
Oh
early
yeah.
Van Halen records, and he also worked on My Mother's a Space Cadet.
He's fantastic.
But the person that I talked to, Greg Renoff, knows Don, talked to him a little bit, and Don said, "Oh yeah, Davard's, that name came from, that's how Edward's mom used to pronounce Ed's name, Edvard." So it's that Davard part of Edvard from Edward's mother. So that's like, and 30 years later or whatever it's been, I find this out now, you know, so
I
it was
love
so
that. I love
crazy.
nuggets. Those are the
Yeah, so
best
that was
pieces of it.
fun. But then when I did my first record, I was 15, and it was Having a Bad Day. And my
Yeah.
dad produced that one. And it was done in the same studio in the Utility Muffin Research
Yeah.
Kitchen. And so that was like, I went from upstairs to downstairs, and now I'm in the studio and I'm making this record. Uh, I used to get to see how everything was all set up, and I was always interested in it, but I wasn't doing the practical stuff of maneuvering microphones and things. And over a period of time, as I was making more projects, I would pay more and more attention. And then I started to have like a little space where I could work from on my own. And it wasn't until I was doing the stuff from the Z records where I had the band with my brother, that I started
Shampoo Head and
Shampoo Horn and
the horn.
Music for Pets,
Yeah.
that I got to start, finding out some of the other production things. And once I learned more from that, it became records like Automatic and Go With What You Know, where I was doing everything on all of it, putting the mics up and mixing everything, so those were the first 2 that I did
So
everything.
Confessions
Yeah.
was
Oh,
more backwards.
Confessions was one that Bob St. John, who did the early Extreme records. So the band Extreme with Nuno Betancourt, Nuno co-produced the Confessions record with me, and that was after the My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama record, which that one was done by Bo Hill, who was a big, huge producer at the time, who produced Rat and
Rat.
Warrant and all this kind of stuff. But it wasn't until later on that I got into doing everything all myself. And so now these days, when I'm going to start doing new music, which in the coming months I'll be doing some new tracking and
New album coming out?
stuff. Well, hopefully I'll get to do something, yeah. But I've got a lot of new things that I'm going to be working on, but I'm going to do it all myself. I might have some great opportunities to do some collaborations with different artists to make some different music. I've been talking to some different people, but you never know. I might have surprising things, like I might do something with Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, or different kinds of projects that could just come up from random conversations that I've had with people. And now people have time off, so it's like, hey, want to just do like a pen pal track? Let's just make something. Why not?
That's pretty awesome. I think and the other thing is, I mean, you have so many other projects. I know you have a guitar project that you've been working on
Yep.
forever, which I just heard, like, I don't know, not too long ago, that you've been doing this. It's like not secretive, but because you just didn't have it out there.
Mhm.
Can you explain a little bit to people just in a nutshell?
Sure.
Because it's fantastically awesome.
It's so crazy because I started it back in, I think, around 1990, maybe something like that. And
The forethought is crazy.
so the goal of it was, I wanted to make something that I described it as an audio movie. So I wanted to make something that changed it. The music would change, and then the audio environment would change, and it would be morphing. And it would be like if you were turning a radio dial and you just tuned in different songs, you would be
Yeah.
hearing something just totally different, every style of music, but the whole thing is it's all guitar, bass, and drums. So there's you it's hearing guitars do things that you wouldn't hear them do otherwise. So like I'll make the guitars sound like bagpipes, or like a shakuhachi flute, or but it's all done on guitar. And but then you have all these other guest guitar players who kind of just fall out of the speakers. Here, like a track will just suddenly change, and oh, now suddenly it's Brian May from Queen, or oh, it's Angus and Malcolm Young from AC/DC, or it's
Ridiculous.
Eddie Van Halen, or it's
Did you
Eric
get Eddie for it?
Johnson.
Did
Yeah,
you get
I
Eddie
did.
for it? Oh,
Yeah, there's
my God.
two solos, and one of them,
Would have been a sin if you didn't get him. After all,
Yeah,
yeah,
well-
yeah, he's the pinnacle of what got you going.
yeah, for sure. But the coolest thing was I got to work with him at 5150, and it was like a total role reversal, because the
Hey,
first thing that he did with me when I was 12 was, he was teaching me how to do punch-ins in the studio, like got to play along, and then he'd press play and record at the right time. So all these years later, I'm saying, okay, on this solo, I need you to play all these. We made like a greatest hits guitar lick solo, it was just a funny thing to say, okay, I want you to play this lick from Mean Streets, this one from Push Comes to Shove, this one from On Fire. And we put it all in one solo over this thing. And he was like, I don't remember how that one goes. And then I would show him the lick. He's like, why don't you just fucking play it? Because you sound just like me anyway. But but the funny part was I would show him things that he didn't remember, but then he would play the whole thing. And if we had to do a punch in, I was now punching him in. So it was like this total, like, role reversal thing. And I was having to show him some things of his own music. I was like, no, it goes like this, so
That's hilarious. You get you the milk and cookies thing too. Do you guys need milk and cookies out there?
yeah, I should have asked him if he needed milk and cookies at that point. But it was, that was such a great experience. But I also had another similar thing like that with Ed, where he came to a show of mine at, I was opening for Jeff Beck at this venue in Los Angeles called the Nokia Center. And Edward came down for the sound check, and he stuck around for the show. And while we were playing at sound check, we were working on this really hard song, which is called St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast. And it has a really, really hard part that I learned to play on guitar. It was never meant to be played on guitar. It was for marimba to begin with. Anyway, backstage, he was like, what the hell was that thing? Like, what were you playing there, And I tried to show it to him. He's like, I could never play that. And of course, technically, I think he could. It would just take him a while to, but the whole point was like, here is, Edward Van Halen at my show and saying, hey, how are you doing that? I could never do that. It's total role reversal compared to like me being a kid going to his shows and be like, how are you doing that? And he's like, oh, it's like this, or, so it was such a great thing to be able to have that experience.
I bet you he loved it just as much though. As much as you hear how big his heart is. I mean, the outpouring of right now, all the stuff, I don't think it's, I hate the word cash grab. I think it's healing, because so many people are so influenced. Like the best song, the happiest part of your life, music touches you, and so many people, it feels like it's part of you. That album,
Yeah.
He's a fair warning. I can listen to every certain album and tell you what was I was doing at that moment, what I was eating. It's personal. So when somebody's done so much out there, like Edward had, like once again, I can say I got a record player and cassette player built into it back, early 80s. First cassette I bought was two. I got Police and I got Diver Down. Diver Down was my first Van Halen album. I wore out. I mean, and from there I just obsessed. The first band was just everything Van Halen. That's the whole life was just Van Halen. Like a lot of people, I'm sure.
But I mean, that feeling because you could listen back to that record and it will take you back to that time frame, and like that's what made you have like a certain idea of like, okay, this is what rock music is supposed to be.
He is the gateway drug. That guitar playing of him was my music gateway drug. That was it. I liked music before, but when I heard the guitar, I just left the planet.
I get it. I mean,
his tone,
for me, the same thing.
His smile too, and his smile, having so much fun. The little smirk he had, it was part of it. It wasn't like angry or nothing. It was just he was smiling, and just everything was different and beautiful, but crazy and heavy. Fair Warning was heavy. I mean, ridiculous sounds. I didn't even know how the songs at the time at my age. Like, that's a guitar. Like, when he plays some stuff, I'm like, where does that sound? Where is that from? you know?
It's totally crazy. And I learn stuff all the time. Like just yesterday, I found out there was an interview clip of Ed. Somebody was asking him about Fair Warning.
Mhm.
And he says, yeah, I wrote most of the songs on piano. I wrote Unchained, Hear About It Later. I'm like, you wrote that on piano? Because here we are, like Unchained is one of the greatest guitar riffs of all time.
Yeah,
And he wrote it on piano.
the melody and the minute heavy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I never knew that, but so
I
that
love
kind of
that. I
stuff
love
is so cool.
So it's funny. So as much as he played the piano, I always felt like there was pushback when he started doing keyboards. I didn't mind him doing it because I think an artist should do what they want. If an album
Yeah.
changes and you don't like it, it's an artist. No one tells you your job what to do. It's
Yeah.
part of what they do. So I always like that. So the fact that he was playing piano back then, I mean, he's always been doing it anyhow. So that is just
But it's
ridiculous.
amazing that such a powerful guitar riff came to him on the piano first, because it sounds like, and when you play it on guitar, it's a very guitaristic thing. I don't play piano, so I don't know how it sets up on the piano, but the riff on Unchained,
Mhm.
it seems like that definitely would have been like, oh, obviously written on the guitar, but apparently not.
Unless he was thinking, yeah, guitar and piano at the same time. His brain, he was a genius at that. So I mean, that was just how it is. Well, so yeah, I think all this stuff, like I think your podcast is going, is part of a healing process for people. I think to wrap your mind around the age of someone when they die. So, I mean, I know just like you and your father, same thing. To wrap your mind, it's taken years. I mean, and then you got this thing with Ed and his music. I think it's great. I think it's such a yeah. I can't say enough about hearing the stories you hear. Someone's like a Guitar Center. He used to come every now and then. He didn't know me forever. He'd actually talk to me and like remember things from me. Like I was just a guy making part-time money at a Guitar Center, and Ed would come in every now and then and talk to me. Like great, you know.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stories that people have, and you know, he as a musician, he was unparalleled for the style of music that he did.
Mhm.
But as a person, he was very generous, and he lived in the moment like nobody I've ever seen. Like if he wanted to do something, if something was interesting or exciting, he's like, let's do it right now, and so that was so cool because as a kid, I saw that and I thought, well, that's how you're supposed to do it.
Yep.
If something is cool and you want to do it, don't wait, just go for it. Like musically, like an idea, like set it up, do it, let's make it happen.
Those are some
And
great role models.
yeah, it was definitely cool. And my dad was the same way. He worked really fast in the studio, and if he had a really good idea, he would just make it happen. And I think that's something that people have in common. If you're really creative and you have a real vision and you can see it in your mind's eye and you know how to make it happen, you don't need to wait. You just go, let's do it right now. Okay, let's just do it like this. And that's the stuff that puts a smile on your face when you see that creative thing that leads you to something. I saw it so many times in the studio with my dad making stuff up that he thought was so hilarious or was just such a cool sound or whatever. He would just get into the zone on something and just make it happen. And when you think about that, it's like, okay, here's something that's happening in his head and he can see it and he can hear it, and then he's able to translate that, take it out and do something that then other people can hear what's specifically in his head. He knew what it was going to be, and then he said, here, this is what it is. And to me, it's so fascinating that anybody could operate that way,
Well,
that the speed of creativity.
the fact that he didn't wasn't like raised the super musically. It wasn't like he was raised to be a child prodigy. I mean, he's a brand new composer, but obviously early in his career, he wasn't like super musician. He was like doing greeting cards and drawing because he has so much other creativity. The music thing was not a huge thing. Like he was not, born prodigy, just what I mean, off in
Yeah.
the corner with a piano, little tiny piano or something. But no, I mean, even just feels like it was just out of the blue. All of a sudden, you became like a musician and then a genius.
I mean, I think it was just, following whatever was interesting to him, and nobody else in his family had the similar interests. So he just went down the path that kept him excited.
I mean, that's just insane. So the one thing I noticed of the production, I went and then go to your album. You went from so you go with it now, and then around that time you took a break. I mean, I know there's like the Z stuff, but you did a lot of Zappa play Zappa. At that time, I know you said you actually kind of changed how you thought about music, like playing and stuff, because you got to kind of like retrain yourself, do your
Yeah.
dad's stuff. So maybe 9 years, how long before your next solo album came out? 2015 one, the
Yeah,
Sonata.
Via Zamata. Yeah, it was
Um,
because Go With What You Know, I think was 2005 or 2006 when that came out. So there was, you know,
There's
good
a
10
huge
years.
difference, right? And I've heard all of them, and I have them, you know. But all your albums have like a little funny twist to it, and you know, a similarity, you know. But then Via came out, a lot more eclectic, I think, a little more singing. It's really just it's a fun album, and
Thanks.
if I could ask you about each song, just like a little snippet or something
Sure.
about it, because it comes up, because I listen to it a lot, and I'm like, what do you think of this idea from? So Funky 15 was just a jam or something.
So the main riff, that rhythm, it's almost like a Morse code kind of thing, and it
Yeah.
has a thing where it's in 15. So as it cycles through, the actual pulse, if you try to tap your foot in 4/4, it cycles through a few times before it comes back to a proper downbeat. And so the goal was to try to make this thing have little elements of the thematic melody
Mhm.
happen on either side of this little moving phrase. And so it has a lot of features to it that end up sounding to me very cinematic, like a movie score. And I wanted to utilize instrumentation I'd never worked with. So I had a couple of string players in there. And, you know, this record was a full band, but using horns and keyboards
Was
and
it your same touring band? Was like Shield, all them? Were they was that
yeah,
was other
but
band?
then the string players were hired
Right.
people from LA. But so the goal was to write with instruments in mind. Before I was always interested in just making the guitar do all the other stuff, you know, like
Mhm.
making guitar sound like a keyboard or some other thing. And but this was okay, I want these instruments to be in their own space and have a keyboard part or have a horn part. And so that was the first time that I was able to make a record with that kind of instrumentation. And a lot of the stuff that I learned from learning my dad's music and playing on stage and learning how those arrangements work
Mhm.
made it easier for me to want to think about making music that way. Um, but it also then started to open up all these other avenues to write in different ways. And so Funky 15 really is, it's it's guitaristic, but it also is orchestral, you know. So I think that's one of maybe the thematically one of the most dense pieces that I've ever done. And I like how it came
I like it
out.
too. I do too. I don't think, because you really can't place it against anybody. I hate to compare music. I mean, but even like musicians, like maybe you know, Steve Vai maybe would have a composition as eclectic as like a different breakdown, but it doesn't sound like Steve Vai. It's just it
Yeah.
is what it is. I couldn't place it. That's why. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I mean, I also wanted it to kind of have a funky feel, like a funk, a 70s funk kind of
Yeah,
feel mixed
it's
in
fun.
with it as well. So that's why it has like a really dry drum sound and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I could picture that in a car chase in like the Born Identity or something. You know what I mean? It's like
It's a fun song to drive to, going to work.
yeah, it's got some cool things going on.
So then, Rat Race,
Yep.
Dragon Master. That was the one that you combined with your dad. You get to do a little fun
Yep.
thing. You started
Mhm.
with him. Um, what I want to know, Malkovich.
Okay. Yeah.
That
Malcolm.
is so fun. That is so fun. Give me a little details on that. Did John Malkovich? What does he feel about that? Is he? I mean,
Well, here's the funniest part. So the John Malkovich tune, there was a guy, and I'm spacing on his name right now, but who had contacted me and said, "Hey, got this project that's happening, and John Malkovich is doing an art installation, and he wants to have some music that goes with this thing too. And what he wants to do is have different artists um, make some music out of this one thing. He's going to provide the exact same vocal track to all these different artists and let them have their interpretation of what it should be."
that's
So
interesting.
he recited the allegory of the cave, which, you know, as an actor, he's bringing this storytelling thing to life. And so this is Plato's allegory of the cave. And if you read it and you think about it, you're like, oh, this is on so many levels, it's deep and provocative,
Right.
and crazy and weird. But what I wanted to do when I heard it, the absurdity of it was,
Preposterous. It's just ridiculous.
yeah, was like, okay, so he's telling the story, and this thing, I don't know when it was written, I don't,
Right.
but this is an old story, right? Like
Yeah.
1,000 years old. I don't know what it is, right? So, but anyway, he's reciting this thing, and I'm thinking most people aren't going to know that it's even Plato's allegory of the cave. They're just
Right.
going to think it's just some weird stuff he's talking about. So I thought, why don't I just make the chorus be, what the fuck are you talking about? And so I made the verses have these, like the space for the what he's saying to just kind of like feel like it's swimming in this weird atmosphere. And then the chorus comes in and it's just saying his name, Malkovich, Malkovich, Malkovich. And then, it's what the fuck are you talking about?
That's the funniest song. It's
Yeah,
so good.
but here's the best part. I was sent the audio from John Malkovich. I made the song. I sent it in because he had a version where it came out on his own album, and then I had a version where it came out on mine. Same song, different mix, right? But I've never to this day spoken to John Malkovich. I've never met him. I don't know if
Really?
I heard the song. I don't know anything. And so it was just this thing where it was sent to me, and I made this thing, and I have no idea if he likes it or if he's heard it or
Day at a party, he'll be like, Dweezil.
yeah.
And you're not gonna know until he talks to you because he's the way he is. You just won't know until like that exact minute he goes, it was good. Or what?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
But some of the other people that are on it, it's a really eclectic group, like Yoko Ono and Sean Lennon. They did a song, and then and it's the same, allegory of the cave
Yep.
lyrics. And then Dolores O'Riordan from the Cranberries
Yep.
did
A beautiful
something.
voice, yeah.
I don't know who else, but so it's a weird combo of people. But mine was just part of that collective
But
installation.
you don't even know. I was totally wondering what his reaction was to that. Like so that's like just a mystery. That is awesome.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to know, but
That's so funny.
yeah,
That's
but
awesome.
the art installation, I think, it travels around to different places,
Still?
and what it is he reenacts famous photographs. So he'll dress up or have makeup and stuff, and he'll be the subject of world famous paintings or photographs, and then they'll just do a picture. It's not done with Photoshop. It's all like composed specific photos that capture that photo in that moment. So
He is
it's
another world. That is
yeah,
incredible.
it's
So
weird.
that is insane. A couple other good songs. I think, but the Billionaire's Son, probably the
Yeah,
last song I want to know about. Where we got that from?
it was just a weird song. I wrote that song back in probably around 1998.
Like a little proverb, sort of. It's kind of like a little
Well, it's like this,
whimsical. It's whimsical.
well, what I wanted to do again, it's kind of like a little mini audio movie too, because it takes you through like the Roaring '20s or something.
Mhm.
It has
Oh yeah, it paints a story.
yeah, and then the storyline is that it's like this kid spends all of his father's money overnight, and then his mom is pissed and she kills him, or did she? That's it's like has the
And
the twist at the end. You don't know what really happened,
with the
but
melody,
yeah,
so
but the
good.
idea is, if somehow your child could spend all your money overnight, what would you do? You know?
They try. They try. That is awesome. That's a good song. Yeah, it's good to hear that. So we're going to wrap up. I want to end though on so just touch on it briefly. You're doing a podcast now, running with the Dweezil, breaking up into sections. So you have a couple episodes. You're doing it. How many episodes? I know it's like your pricing and
So what it is it's an all-encompassing thing that goes through Van Halen's musical catalog. So we take every record and we break it down song by song, and I talk with different guitar players. So Steve Vai, Blues Saracino, Paul Gilbert, Nuno Betancourt, Billy Corgan, Joe Satriani. There's a huge list of people. There's 30 episodes. Actually, it's going to end up being more than 30 episodes, but there's over 50 hours of content. And so in this whole thing, it's broken down into the early years. Then there's the middle years, which is the Sammy Hagar era and Gary Sharon era. And then, so we have 3 packages. You can buy the early years, or you can buy the middle period, or you can buy the 5150 package, which gives you every episode. And that one includes a video episode that we haven't done yet, where it will be me in the studio with some friends, and we're going to take apart the sound of Van Halen. We're going to say, okay, how can you make that sound? With how many different ways can you achieve that sound, and with what gear? Not to say that you have to do it only with what Ed used. We're looking for, can you do it with anything else?
Oh,
Can
that'd be
you
really
make
interesting.
that sound with other amps or other guitars? And so it's going to be like a real kind of rabbit hole where we do that. And then there's for people that have like an Axe FX or a Helix or a Kemper, which are digital processing gear, we're going to make presets that they can load into their thing. So those come with the 5150 package. So you'll be able to have these presets to go, oh, here's my eruption sound, or here's my whatever.
I don't have that, but I'm going to get the package because I'm a fan of all the eras. I'd be curious because, like I said, I love OC. I mean, I love it, Dave. I just love it with Gary too. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But really,
Yeah,
it's all encompassing for me. I'm Van Halen from A to Z.
yeah,
It'd be interesting because there's a lot of purists out there to see, like, is it the Dave years going to go? Because it was a time period. Some people like music when they were younger and they lock to it.
right.
When people grow with it, I tend to grow with it. I still listen to music now. I'm always listening, looking, you know what I mean? So I listen to an album, not a song. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Like if it's the Dave years because it's that, you know, cradle rock stuff, or, you know what I mean?
Well, there's definitely people that that like the early years better than the later years, but I'm with you where if you're an artist, you want to be able to have the freedom to explore what you want to do. So as Ed started to change his guitar sound, you know, there's always going to be people that say, oh, I like the earlier sound better. But for him, that's just something he did. He's like, oh yeah, it sounded good, but I'm doing this now.
Well, I think his stuff is towards the end was just as good. I think it was always just different. I mean, it's I love the newer stuff that he was doing. Well, yeah, newer, but you know what I'm saying?
Well, it gave him a chance to always, you know, keep looking for a different sound, different texture. And I like that with any artist, to be able to hear their progression. So for me, I'm interested in all of it. Some people, like you said, might be only interested in the early years. That's why we made an early years package.
Right. So, I mean, you hear a lot of that talk on the internet now, but
yeah,
actually see those, like if that people are really gonna be like, that's it. That's really where it's going to go. They actually put the money out. It's supposed to saying it. I'd love to see how it really plays out when actually people have to pay for it. Like how dedicated those guys are that are purists.
Well, you know, what's funny is the majority of the people that seem to be interested in the podcast want to hear all the episodes. So they get the thing because they also want to, a lot of them are predictably guitar players, and they want to be able to get those presets for like the fractal and they want to see like that episode of recreating the Van Halen Brown sound, because you're not going to be able to see it on YouTube and other places. It's only going to be on my website.
Good. That's awesome. I'm going to be getting that this month. Actually, I'm probably getting it now. And now I'm going to have to neglect my family for 50 hours now. So
I mean, that's the thing is like, you know, if you watch a show, like let's say Game of Thrones or something like that, you know, it's several seasons, but if you didn't watch it from the beginning and you were somebody that bought it right now and you binge watched that and watched every single season and you watched multiple episodes all day long in COVID, you know, you could probably get through that series in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Right. If you were,
I could do it quicker.
But this, when the Van Halen series is completed, because it's going to take like 6 more months to create all this stuff, and because we put them out every Thursday.
Yep.
It's going to take a lot more time to finish all these things, but at the end of that, when it's all there and available for somebody to binge listen, I mean, like imagine the person that is going to just sit down and like listen to every single thing. Like, because some of these episodes are more than 90 minutes long, you know?
I'm gonna do it because I'm totally stoked to do it. I actually waited. I'm like, I'll go 4 episodes out before, because I'm just gonna want to eat them up. I'm gonna want to binge through everything now. You spoiled
Well,
nowadays.
the two that I just did, the ones with Blue Saracino, those were about the Women and Children First record, and we found a bunch of things on there that were really surprise things. Like in really listening to it, I discovered some things about it that I always loved, but we found this one sound that happens in Take Your Whiskey Home, and it's really quick. It just sounds like, you know, it almost sounds like somebody cracking their knuckles, but it's only in the right hand side speaker, and it's only happens in the song once. And it's like, why is that part in there? You know, and I listened to it so many times, and I don't know. There's a specific reason that's in there, I'm guessing, but it's just funny to like draw attention to it and say, what is this? Why is this here?
Are you listening like off of masters or something? Like, what do you?
No, it's if you put on headphones, you can hear it.
Okay.
And at first, I never would have paid attention to it, but because I was doing the editing of the episode and I was listening to that song, I kept saying, wait a minute, there's this sound in here. This is so, like, I thought maybe it was like from some of like an open mic or something from recordings from the voiceover stuff.
Bled through.
But when I took all that out and I just listened to only the actual track from the record, it was there. It was on the recording. So it's this really, you know, special thing. And I actually brought Blues Saracino back in to specifically talk about that part, because we had already finished our conversation, but I said, hey, I found this thing, you got to come back. And so we found that thing and talked about it.
That's hilarious. Is Don Landy or Ted Templeman gonna be involved in this at all?
Well, I would love it. I don't know, you know, so I'm working on that. But one of the,
I mean, Ted talks about him in his book. Did you read his book?
I just got it. I haven't read it, but I did read Van Halen Rising, which was the Greg Renoff book, and I'm going to talk to Greg soon for the podcast.
And then there's the manager also had a book too. That was really.
I read that one.
That one kind of threw me off. I was not expecting some of that stuff. I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, some of it was a little bit depressing
dark,
to read.
A little creepy, and like I'm like, God, that could have been private. It kind of feels. I actually felt like it's vulnerable. Like I don't really need to hear that. You know, I'm not into the dirt. I'm into the creative process.
It does give you a unique perspective of, you know, the challenges that any rock band in that situation might be going through. I mean, it was a different time, a different generation, but there's certain things about it that are fun to check out, and then there's other things that make you feel like, oh.
I felt, you know, I think it was the vulnerability between him and being away and his relationship with his brother at times. I felt like I was peeking into something I shouldn't be seeing. The other stuff is fine because you're a rock star, you're doing stuff, you own your behavior. But those little snapshots of those two together, I was like, oh.
I think one of the things that comes out of that, though, is that you end up having such a deep respect for Michael Anthony and all the stuff that he did, you know, and his accomplishments and his and the contribution that he actually made to the band.
I agree. I mean, from the very beginning, I always thought he's phenomenal. Just not just his voice, but his bass playing, his solidarity, his performance, the way to blend in. It was a whole thing, you know. So that was always a weird thing. I always wish that they reconciled that. You know, they were talking at the end. That would have been really nice. That would have been some nice closure to that. Michael being back, that would have been a thing.
It would have been cool, but you know, I mean,
just to see him together. It wasn't about Wolf. I mean, Wolf was a good player. He's talented like his dad. So I get why Dad wanted to play with him. I get that too. I like my kids play. If I was good enough, I'd play with my kids and instruments. You know what I'm saying? I get that part. So it's not about that. I just would have liked to see them because they started something together.
Right.
Just to have a relationship. Just hearing that Sammy had a relationship at the end with Eddie just made me feel better. I don't know why. I don't know either of them personally. It just felt good.
Yeah. No, I think, you know, that's one of those things, is that if you're a real fan of somebody, this stuff becomes personal in some ways, and you want it to be positive and uplifting, because when you first got into it, that's what it was. You know, you didn't get into it because there was drama or, you know, some other thing.
Ted's book is like that. Ted's book is less drama. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot more studio stuff. And the other shift was, I think the only thing, I'm going to take the story from you, is how the relationship kind of shifted with him and Don Landy. They got closer towards the end. And that was making me think of a question. That's why I'm bringing this up. The last question for you is, around that time, I'd like to figure out the timeline when you read it, if it's similar to the time, because they started doing a lot more work together with less,
Right.
Ted, because that was Don was his right hand man, and Ed and him were like together around the time of your recording when they came
Yeah.
into that. I'm wondering if that was kind of like around that same time period when they started to do more. Ed's learning. Hey, why don't I? This is a good project. You know what I'm saying? What a great opportunity to teach and learn and grow. You know what I mean?
It could have somehow that could have been something that helped it, because I don't think 5150 was built yet.
Mhm.
And so
No, not when they started getting first together. I mean, Don was brought in, and Ted was kind of felt like I think the story was more on the outs at that point. But Don was obviously involved, so that feels like that's the timeline. You'll know when you read it. You're like, oh yeah, I know.
yeah, no, I'm going to check it out. I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah, it's a you got to sit down. You want to read the whole thing in a day. It's not one of those things because it talks about Nat and Linda Ronstadt and all different players. I can't think of the other. It's good. It's a good overlap book.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you, man. This has been a great talk.
Yeah, no problem. Thank
You were the
you.
inspiration for honestly for the show. Talking about artists and the real stuff, the costs, the paying, the reality, and what it takes to become an artist and do it. And then you carried it, your whole life.
I I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, it's a challenge, but some people, like my dad told me, that the music industry is a terrible industry. No one would ever really want to get into it if they really
Mhm.
looked at what's involved in doing it. And the people that make music because they really love music, they would probably do it regardless of if they made money anyway. And
I think that's why people are still doing it because it's making money, or you can't help it. What else can they do? They're just driven to it, like an artist. You can't.
yeah, you're kind of just like, if you're one of those people, you're wired to want to do it. But if you are that way, you want to do it in a way that, like, you, at the end of the day, you hope that somebody will connect with it on some level, and not just because, oh, that's impressive. You actually want them to feel something. You want to, and I think the more that artists can be in tune with that earlier in their career, and then actually build that relationship with the fan right away is important. Like for me, it took a long time to find my own voice in what I do. But some artists find it very early in their career. Like Eddie Van Halen found it very early in his career. He wrote most of the songs that would be on all of his records when he was in his early 20s. But the point is that, if you're in a situation where you're constantly going to be having to make compromises and do things that aren't artistically what you want to do, it's going to be depressing. It's going to be like pushing a rock up a hill. And my dad felt that way about everything all the time. And there was a point where he said, when he was ill, he said, I really want to go out to the desert and I want to set all of my tapes on fire, because he was like, who cares about any of this stuff? He did it because he liked it.
Mhm.
And if anybody else liked it, uh, then that would be a bonus. But the frustration of pushing that rock up the hill that whole time, it takes a toll, really. So artists who want to make music and they want to connect with people, if they can do it directly, it's really just the most beneficial way.
That is fantastic. Good words to end on. I thank you for your time, man.
Thank you.
Okay.